So one of the projects ongoing at the Abbey this summer is the construction of a woodshed, because where we store a lot of wood over the winter is going to be the site of the future Buddha Hall. So we need a new place to store wood. And for someone like me who grew up in a tropical city, I think before I moved to the Abbey, my idea of firewood was the log cakes you eat at Christmas, and I had never seen a shed in my life. So the notion that we were going to build a woodshed ourselves was to me quite inconceivable. So the chief architect, contractor, foremonk is Venerable Losang. And one morning he told all of us, we're going to have a shed raising, so I need some help. And people laughed, and again I was like, what is a shed raising? So apparently in rural America, back in the day, people would come together and put up the walls of a barn by hand, and it was a big celebration. My notion of it is it involves fiddle music and banjos, not the hard work part. So we had neither the fiddle nor banjo, but we had a shed walls to raise. So that morning, a little team of us gathered in the area in front of the barn, and Venerable Losang and Nicole had already put in some cement blocks in the ground, and there was a pile of wood sitting there. And so we gathered around the wood, and Venerable Losang said, "These are walls." And right there, I thought, that was a great moment for me to start reflecting on the teachings on emptiness. Because I looked at the pile of wood and I was like, walls? I mean, what makes them walls? Do they become walls when Venerable Losang, the creator, capital C, opens his mouth and says, "These are walls"? And then the nuns, because we trust him, he knows what he's doing, and we go, okay, they're walls. Because they don't look like walls, yeah? They're pieces of old wood that he salvaged, nailed together, and they're sitting in a pile horizontally. So, he gives us some instruction. We're like, okay. So we move these walls horizontally over to where the blocks are, right? And he tells us, okay, we're now going to flip it on its side so it's standing. So we turn it on its side. So now do we have a wall, right? This thing is standing. It looks a bit more like a wall, but it's still a piece of wood in our hands, it seems, right? And then we lift it and put it into the brackets. So now is it a wall? But it still can't stand on its own. It's not functioning as a wall, right? And then so he says, no, okay, I'm going to come around and put some screws into the base. So he takes these little pieces of metal and just runs around and goes zoop, 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 zoop. And then magic. It's standing. It became a wall, I think. Yeah, now we could step back. So was it a wall or not by then? Yeah, or was it a piece of wood in a metal bracket in the parking lot? So all morning we got to watch these walls coming up, and I was just always wondering, what makes them walls? When do they become walls? In the middle of working on this, two Venerable Semke said, oh, this is old chipboard. Yeah, this is board that came from Prajna Cottage. It was left over from construction, and Venerable Losang salvaged it, and that's what he nailed together. So again, that was a good reflection on the parts of these walls, right? It's like, when did the board become walls? Was it when Venerable Losang saw the boards and had the thought, these could be walls, and I'm going to save them and use them? And so yeah, I had a lot of fun out in the work site thinking about what makes walls walls, and when do they become walls? But by the end of that morning, the unfindable walls had all gone up, and we had a structure that was going to be called a woodshed. Right? Venerable Losang could say, in this space, we're going to put the chipper. In this space, we're going to put the snowblower. In this space is where we're going to put the wood. Yeah, but you're just looking at, what are you looking at as he's saying that, right? And I thought, there's still time. We can still change it. It can still become a sauna. Yeah, that is still possible. The woodshed does not exist from its own side, and we can for sure make some changes. So that was part one of my little construction adventure. And then a few days later, Venerable Losang said to me, oh, I need some help. We're putting up the rafters. I'm like, what are rafters? I'm like, okay, sure, I'll help. So he asked me if I was comfortable on ladders, and I said no. So my job for the day was to do stuff in the workshop. So he had a little task for me to do, and then he said, when you're done with this, I'd like you to carry out these pieces of wood. They were like long cut wood. And there were 3 piles. So they were two were sitting on a sawhorse. Yeah, again, new words for me. What is a sawhorse? So there was a pile called A, a pile called B, and he said, and then the pile that's leaning against the wall, that's C. Okay? And he says, bring out the A's when you're done. Okay, so I do my little task. So I have this pile that I understand are A's, and I carry them all out. And I put them on the sawhorse in the construction area. And he looks at them, and he says, these are not A's. And I say, okay. Then he's very busy doing other things, right? So I'm like, okay, I think he meant the other pile on the sawhorse. Let's give that a try. So I go in and I carry that all out. And he goes, those are not A's either. They are B's. And I say, okay, so the A's must be the ones leaning against the walls that you called C's. And he said, oh yes, that's true. So I went back and I carried out the C's. But again, it was a good moment to reflect on, like, what is the meaning of the, merely designated, right? If they were A's, B's, and C's from their own side, I should have gone in and the boards would have been like, we are A's, come on. Instead, it was like, okay, there's a whole bunch of boards. I don't really know what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm just gonna carry out one pile that I think are the A's and hope for the best. So, but it got me thinking too about how we do still need to designate, right, for things to function and for us to work together. So that every time Venerable Losang needs a piece of wood, he doesn't have to say, give me the piece of wood with the groove cut into the bottom left corner that has a pointy corner at the top. I mean, those are the A's, yeah? They're gonna go on one part of the roof. Yeah, if you go out and see the A's are on one side, then there are the B's in the middle and the C's at the bottom. It took me like 30 minutes to figure this out, standing there in the sun. But so yeah, instead of having to say all that with that, wood cut this way, blah, blah, from the roof he could say, give me an A. And by then I knew what he was talking about. I could take the merely labeled A's and give them to him. And the Venerable Sepal was working with us too. So when she heard Venerable Losang call, give me an A, then I hand him a piece of wood. Then she repeated that and went, give me an A, A! Like, the way you do when you're getting people to spell things and cheer. Yeah, when cheerleading. And I just thought that was so funny. Like, again, these words, give me an A, right? They don't have some fixed inherent meaning. They only mean something in context. They could be an instruction for you to please give me a piece of wood cut on the bottom left corner groove with a pointy top. Or it could be a joke. So yeah, that was just an interesting moment. And I was just thinking about why it is that I got that joke. Maybe from years of watching Sesame Street, I don't know. So maybe by this time you are concerned that we are never going to finish building this woodshed because Venerable Losang's helpers are standing there thinking about Buddhist philosophy and how things exist. And are they just designated and why? And where's the wall? Where's the woodshed? But we did get the rafters on, I will say that. And by the end of that morning, I found myself thinking about these two verses I had read in the Dhammapada many, many years ago. They're part of the traditional Pali chanting, I think, that's done every day. And back then I was studying with a teacher in the Theravada tradition, and he encouraged us to chant this every day in Pali, but I would read the English translation as well. So I'm going to read these two verses that struck my mind at the end of this morning. So the two verses say, now these are 153 and 154 in the Dhammapada. I have coursed through the whirl of numerous lives, seeking but not finding the builder of the house. Pain is birth over and over again. Builder of the house, you are seen. Never again will you build a house. These rafters all broken, the roof of the house destroyed. The mind, free from the conditioned, has come to the end of cravings. So while we are building the house, the actual woodshed house in the barn area, may that be an opportunity for all of us to reflect on what exactly is getting built and who's building it. And may that help us to integrate whatever we do here at the Abbey into our examination of how we exist, how things exist, and to progress on the path to liberation and full awakening. In the meantime, I think we should really consider making it a sauna.